I'm sorry, but we have already left. While I was in the bathroom at the rest stop, I got a call from Larry. I was curious about what he wanted at such a time. When I answered the call, I heard Larry and his in-laws laughing loudly. "What's going on?" I asked. He told me something shocking. "We're going to have fun with the family. You can go back home and clean or something." I had been really looking forward to this trip because it had been a long time since our last one. Even though I had doubts about traveling with his family, I was excited to stay at a fancy inn. I can't believe he left me alone at a rest stop. Standing inside the bathroom stall, I felt deeply betrayed and shook with anger. Still, I managed to say okay quietly. It's unforgivable. Today was not only our wedding anniversary, but also my birthday, and we came on this trip for that. I'll make him regret this. My name is Linda Harrison. I'm a 36-year-old housewife. I don't have any children and live with my husband, Larry. We got married exactly 1 year ago on my birthday. Larry is romantic and has always made a big deal of our anniversaries and birthdays. Growing up, he was treated to fancy dinners, trips abroad, and cruises for his birthdays. It seems those childhood memories have stayed with him because he loves celebrating special days in a big way. Now that we're married, Larry's family is wealthy. His father is the CEO of Harrison Securities. My mother-in-law has fully embraced the wealthy lifestyle, and Larry, as the heir to the company, sometimes acts a bit spoiled. But I married him because I knew he cherished me. We met at a matchmaking agency where men from wealthy families like Larry were popular. I almost gave up on finding someone there. When I met him, I was lucky because I seemed to be his type, which led to our marriage. It might have helped that I wasn't just looking for someone rich. I had always dreamed of getting married, and I was thrilled when it happened. But I didn't know that after getting married, my life would start to get tough. A year ago, Larry and I started our married life in a one-bedroom apartment in the city. Larry wanted a bigger house, but I didn't think it was necessary since it was just the two of us. I suggested we live within our means for now, and we could always move later. Even though we were in the city, our rent was expensive at $2,300. As a housewife, this made me feel guilty. "Don't worry about it, my dad will handle it," Larry said. Although he was the heir and worked at Harrison Securities, I thought there should be some fairness with other employees. I wondered if it was really okay. But the next month, his salary went up by $800. "Your dad's amazing to be able to increase your salary just like that," I said. "It was time for a raise anyway. I won't let you face any hardships, Linda. Count on me," Larry replied. Even though Larry relied on his father's influence for money, I felt thankful for the raise and didn't argue. "By the way, I'm having dinner with my parents tonight," he added suddenly. "Is it like a business dinner?" "No, just a family dinner. I think I'll be back by 12. Take care." I was surprised. Even after marrying me, Larry casually mentioned having dinner with his parents on a regular evening. Caught off guard, I watched him say he should get going and then leave the house. Dinner on a weekday? Well, today is Friday after all. I hadn't heard about Larry planning to have dinner with his in-laws. Usually, as his wife, I'd be invited too. Not that I wanted a free meal, but it's important to build a good relationship with one's in-laws. I couldn't understand Larry's actions and started feeling unsure about our married life. After that dinner incident, Larry often went to his parents' house for reasons like, "It's my cousin's birthday," or "Mom asked me to come over." As a first-time bride, I just agreed, thinking this was normal. But when I had dinner with a friend one day and Larry was absent, she was surprised. "He goes home that often and leaves you alone for a cousin's birthday." "That's crazy," she said. She had been married for 6 years and knew more about married life than I did. Realizing that her reaction was normal, I felt embarrassed. "You're right, it's weird, but Larry says it's normal." "Seriously, don't take this the wrong way, but hasn't he really grown up yet?" she commented. Her words made me think. It's unusual for a 38-year-old, even one set to take over his dad's business. to prioritize family matters so much after getting married. I regretted not seeing Larry's true nature before marrying him. Returning home after dinner with my friend, I felt sad. "I'm home, Linda. Where have you been? Isn't it normal for a wife to cook dinner and wait for her husband, Mrs. Harrison?" To my surprise, my mother-in-law was in the living room. Larry was out, maybe at a convenience store. "Why are you here? Weren't you and Larry supposed to dine out tonight?" I asked. "That got canceled because of some issue at the restaurant. I thought Larry had messaged you just a bit ago." "Didn't you check?" she pointed out. I checked my phone and indeed, 22 minutes ago, Larry had messaged that he'd be home early, but I had just gotten off the train. There was no way I could have gotten home and started dinner so quickly. "Yes, he did message, but I only saw it just now." What the heck? This is the problem with kids from single-parent households. "You can tell they weren't raised right," my mother-in-law said harshly. Her words hurt me deeply. Indeed, I was raised by a single mother after my mom gave birth to me, and my father passed away due to an illness. Despite that, my mother raised me with a lot of love. I wished she wouldn't say things that put down my mother's hard work. It has nothing to do with being raised by a single parent. I just hadn't seen the message yet. I replied, clearly annoyed, but she ignored my comment and changed the subject. "Well, anyway, I've always thought this, but your house is quite small." "I think it's average. It's just right for the two of us." "You can't be serious." I feel sorry for Larry living in such a cramped space. My interactions with my mother-in-law continued to stress me out. Both my mother-in-law and father-in-law, maybe because they are wealthy, often seem to look down on others. That's why I never got along with them. Realizing that further conversation was pointless, I silently started to make dinner. Ignoring me, she turned on the TV. From that day, she started coming over unexpectedly more often, and even my father-in-law came a few times. Mostly, they complained about how dirty the kitchen was or how small the house felt. Eventually, they would sarcastically suggest, "You know we have a bigger house. Why not move in?" I definitely didn't want that and declined every time. They always visited when Larry wasn't home, so he didn't hear their rude remarks. I once talked to him about it, but he replied, "Why not? Why is living together a bad idea?" I was upset by his response. From then on, I realized there was no point in discussing it with Larry, and I just put up with it on my own. Soon we would be celebrating our first wedding anniversary, which was also my birthday. For your birthday this weekend, I'm thinking of celebrating bigger than last year. After all, it's also our anniversary, Larry said, coming home tipsy from work. Seeing his flushed face, I wasn't sure he meant it. Knowing he liked big celebrations, I felt a bit excited. "Last year, you treated me to a delicious dinner, which was more than enough. That's nothing compared to what I've planned. Let's go on a family trip." A family trip? The term sounded odd just for the two of us. Noticing my confusion, Larry continued, "My parents, cousins, Uncle Scenes, and all will join. We're heading to a luxury resort in Oceanside." "All those people? And why Oceanside? Do you have a problem with a family trip, or is it Oceanside you're not keen on?" "No, it's not that, honestly." I couldn't understand why my birthday and our anniversary had to involve Larry's family, who weren't part of these occasions. I knew Larry was a bit out of touch, but I didn't expect such a strange idea. Although the choice of Oceanside confused me a little, it wasn't a big deal. "Sounds fun, right, Linda? Sometimes you've got to let loose and have fun," Larry said, a bit drunk, as he grabbed my shoulders. I found myself agreeing with him. Over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about the trip. At first, I was unsure about going with his whole family, but as Larry said, it was a rare vacation, and I decided to make the most of it. As I prepared for the trip, I started to feel excited, and I found myself genuinely smiling. I knew my in-laws would probably make their usual rude remarks, but I decided to ignore them completely. Finally, the awaited Saturday came, and Larry and I went to his parents' house, our meeting point for the trip. Well, Linda, you're late, aren't you? Do you even realize you're the star today? My mother-in-law said sharply in front of everyone. But knowing I was supposed to be the focus helped soften her words a little. I'm sorry, there was traffic, I replied. Excuses won't do. We should leave soon. Otherwise, we'll be late to our luxury resort. All right, let's get going, I said. Despite their complaints about us being late, it was bearable. After all, they had been making such comments all year. Larry's cousin, who looked much younger than him and had a mean look in his eyes, made me wonder if everyone in the family was mean-spirited. My worry seemed justified when he made a demeaning remark. This is Larry's wife? Not what I expected. I looked away from him, figuring that reacting would only encourage them to criticize me more. I decided to act maturely. I'm so excited. I've been to luxury resorts many times, but tonight's place costs $2,000 per person, I heard someone say. Hearing the price of $22,000 shocked me, and a sudden thought crossed my mind. I got into my in-laws' car, and as soon as my father-in-law started the car, we began moving. The drive to our destination in Oceanside would take about 3 hours. About an hour into our journey, we decided to take a short break at the next rest stop. I'll be right back, heading to the restroom, I said. All right, off you go, my mother-in-law waved dismissively, almost like shooing away a stray dog. I walked to the rest stop bathroom, feeling as if everyone's eyes were on me, or maybe it was just my imagination. Inside the bathroom stall, I took a deep breath, relieved that the trip had been uneventful so far. I hoped the rest of our journey would be just as smooth. Just as I was settling into that thought, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Larry calling. Expecting him to ask me to pick something up, I answered casually, "I'm still in the restroom, Larry." With what sounded like amusement, he replied, accompanied by the laughter of my mother-in-law. "Sorry, but we've already left." There was a moment of stunned silence on my end while laughter echoed from their side. "What do you mean?" I asked. Larry replied, "We're going to have fun with our family. You should just go home and clean, Linda dear. Today's trip is just for the Harrison family. It's a pity, but you'll have to stay behind. Goodbye." I was stunned. I had been looking forward to this trip for a long time. Having his family join us was a bit concerning, but I was excited about staying at a luxury hotel, and now they had left me alone at the rest area. I was shaking inside the restroom stall, feeling completely betrayed. Trying to keep my anger in check, I simply replied with a quiet "okay." This was unforgivable. Today was both our wedding anniversary and my birthday, and they had brought me on this trip. I was determined to make them regret this. After leaving the restroom, I called someone. The person on the other end was shocked and shared some surprising news. "Really?" I asked. "Yes," they answered. Then they promised to come and pick me up. Being left alone at the rest area like this was unbearable. I prayed for a quick rescue. An hour later, my Uncle Scene arrived in his car to pick me up. "I'm so sorry to trouble you like this," I said. "It's okay, it's quite an unfortunate situation," he replied. "Yes, they're headed to a luxury hotel in Oceanside," I mentioned. My Uncle Scene thought for a moment, then seemed to realize something. "I think that's the case," I replied. "I'm really sorry, but can you please take me there? I'll take the train back." "Got it. The drive there is nice anyway," my Uncle Scene agreed happily. About an hour later, we arrived in Oceanside. Larry and the others had come here before us. In front of us was a luxurious inn with a grand gate, a well-known high-end hotel, the only luxury accommodation I knew of that costs $2,000 a night. At the reception, I was told, "Dinner starts at 6:00 p.m. Please follow me." The person who greeted me with a smile was my mother. "Linda, it's been a while," she said. Dressed in an elegant outfit and smiling gracefully in a way that might seem formal to others, it was unmistakably my mother. This inn has been run by my mother's family for many years, and she currently holds the position of the innkeeper. After becoming a single mother, she began working at this inn. So to me, this place feels like home. I had called my mother from the rest area and was surprised to learn that there was a reservation today from Harrison Securities. I suspected they were going to a luxury hotel in Oceanside, but I never imagined they would be coming to the inn my mother runs. Of course, the family doesn't know that my mother manages this inn. What a terrible story, Linda. You can't just let this slide, my mom said. Yeah, I know. That's why I came here, I replied. Let's get you changed over here, she suggested as I prepared to greet them at the dinner table. An hour later, at 7:00 p.m., my in-law family gathered for dinner. I stayed in the next room to remain unnoticed, slightly opening the door to observe inside. The spa was amazing. I'd want to come here every day if I could. If it were closer, we could indeed come every day, one of them said. At the very least, if you become the CEO, we could afford to come here anytime, another added. Really, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, the subordinates handle all the work anyway. I want to become a CEO soon too, Larry added, thinking they were just among themselves, making some rather crude remarks. But when my mother appeared from the other side of the door and greeted them, the room went silent. Today, I will be in charge of serving you. Please let me know if you need anything, my mom said, bowing with perfect grace. There was a tangible tension among the family. However, when the food was served, they resumed their inappropriate discussions. Both my mother and I did nothing, simply watching as the plates emptied before them. It's great that we all could come. We got rid of the bothersome daughter-in-law, and the food is delicious. Perfect, one remarked. If you say that, she might get angry, you know, another cautioned. It's fine, she's not really one of us. To be honest, she never was. After all, it would be a shame to have a child from a single-parent family in our household, my mother-in-law said harshly. Hearing her mother-in-law's harsh words, my frustration boiled to an almost uncontrollable point. At that very moment, my mother entered the room with a dessert plate loaded with cake and fruit. Today, I've heard it's Miss Linda's birthday and also her wedding anniversary with her husband. When my mother asked where to place the cake for Miss Linda, the family looked at each other, confused. Nobody told you that, they mumbled. Excuse me, I'm the innkeeper, and I've clearly heard about it. Did Larry call? I didn't tell anyone, Larry muttered. There was an awkward silence, and the in-laws exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the mother-in-law raised her hand. I am Linda, she said, embarrassed. I was too embarrassed to mention it at my age, but thank you all for the surprise. Given that the only woman in the room was the mother-in-law, her reaction seemed appropriate. However, my mother just gave a faint smile, seeing her act. Hey, what's so funny? Is it strange to be surprised at my age? The mother-in-law asked. No, not at all. I wasn't thinking that, my mother replied. Then just bring the cake already, the mother-in-law demanded. Yes, but before that, there's something I'd like to share, my mother said calmly. I took a deep breath. Linda Harrison is my daughter. Everyone in the room looked shocked and raised their voices in surprise. Seeing an opportunity, I quickly opened the door from the adjacent room and stood next to my mother. Welcome, this innkeeper is my mother. It's a pleasure to meet you, I said. Larry exclaimed, Linda, why are you here? And what do you mean she's your mother? It means exactly that. This inn belongs to my family, and I also intend to take over this place someday, I explained. In truth, Larry had never met my mother before. Part of it was because my mother was busy with the inn, and Larry and his parents also insisted on not meeting her face to face. Larry had called me for our wedding introduction, but he never met her in person. I showed my mother a picture of Larry and explained who he was. It was an unconventional introduction, but I believed my mother had accepted him. From your earlier conversations, could you please refrain from mocking and belittling my mother for being a single parent? I asked. We just stated the facts, they replied. What's with the sudden drama? "What grudge do you have against us?" they continued. Neither Larry nor his mother nor anyone else seemed to realize the extent of the disrespect they had shown me. I was exasperated. I let out all the anger I had been holding back. "If I have any grudges, it starts with you, Larry. I thought you were a good person when we got married, but it turns out you're too attached to your mom. You married me, so you should put me first, right? Don't team up with your parents to make fun of me." Larry was speechless, unable to argue against my points. My mother listened quietly to my outburst. Turning to my in-laws, I asked, "Why do you treat me this way? If I'm such a nuisance, I can leave the Harrison family right now." "You'll become a lonely, poor single woman, yeah? Are you sure about being alone?" Both the mother-in-law and Larry sneered. Looking between my mother and me, I stared back firmly. "It's okay, actually. I'm pregnant, so I won't be lonely. And if I inherit this I won't have any financial worries." The truth was, I found out I was pregnant last week and hadn't told Larry yet. Only my mother knew, which is why she wasn't surprised. "A child? What are you talking about? I haven't heard about this," Larry said, confused. "Wait, Linda, if that's the case, it changes things. You should have told us sooner." Upon learning I was pregnant, the family immediately changed their attitude. I couldn't stand their unreliable and unreasonable behavior any longer and shouted again, "No, my decision is final. Let's proceed with the divorce through lawyers. I will live happily with my child and my mother." Saying this, I opened the door to the hall they were in and left. The door slammed shut loudly. "I'm done with this. My child will be happier without that family." Whether they tried to change my mind or not, I received over 45 calls a day from Larry and his parents. Eventually, I blocked all their numbers. A few days later, I received a letter from Larry informing me of our official divorce. The letter expressed his regret and pleaded for me to return, but I ignored it and tore it up. I thought he might neglect our child just like he prioritized his parents over me, and I absolutely didn't want that. Being alone and lonely will be your fate, not mine, I thought. He should enjoy his bachelor life. Currently, I am nurturing my child in my womb and discussing future plans with my mother. Once the child is born and grows a bit, I plan to send them to daycare and join the inn's business. The path to becoming the next innkeeper is long, but I'm determined to work hard to raise my child properly.